Welcome back to the Daily Dope. I'm your friend, Brand. So, you're probably wondering why I haven't been jumping for joy for Canada and their legalization situation going on up there. It's probably because it's crazy. It's like the exact opposite of legalization. It's it's the government taking over drug dealing, basically. And I don't like it. I don't like to report about it because there's so much. It's like a freaking avalanche of just bullshit. That's just like, what? One thing after another. You're just like, what? What? No way. That's not possible. What? 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 So whenever I want to find out what's going on in Canada, my go-to is Mark and Jody Emery, because in my old school, Jack Harris school kind of, I'm from the 80s kind of guy, kind of shit that from my perspective, these guys are the only people really saying anything that makes sense coming out of Canada. All right? I mean, I've heard Bob and Doug McKenzie make more sense than most of the people talking about Canada. So I've been sitting around waiting for a nice, clean cut, crisp, smooth, right to the point article that I can read to you that would make you all understand how fucked up it is up in Canada with the so-called legalization. And let's just jump in. So this is the best piece ever on the scam that is Canadians' dystopian legalization shit show. A must read. Truth is finally getting in the media. Braun, the dope on dope. Now I personally I knew right when I heard, Mark Emery say this, that this was definitely the one. All right, so it delivers, man. Let me get it up. All right, here we go. So I'm just gonna read it. I don't know if I really have anything to say about it while I'm reading it or not. Probably not. They nail it, no doubt about it. So here's this picture here. Jody with her hubby Mark breaks down what marijuana legalization will mean later this year. It's written by Liz Braun, and it's called The Dope on Dope. And I'm Brand from the Daily Dope, ripping this out for you. Here's some advice about the up-and-coming legalization of marijuana. Abandon hope, all ye who enter here. Anyone looking for the dope on legal dope in Canada needs to prepare for some unpleasant surprises in the way of corruption, insider influence, draconian new laws, massive bureaucracy, stupendous hypocrisy, and a government setting itself up like a cartel to squash the competition. And if you've heard me talking about the corporate marijuana takeover time and time again, I've been talking about this for ever since I started this channel. And I also have a video called 2018 is the year of the corporate takeover, blah blah blah. But anyway, that is basically the bullet points of all my talking points. Every time I make a video about it, there's always corruption, insider influence, draconian new laws, massive bureaucracy, stupendous hypocrisy, and a government setting itself up like a cartel to squash the competition. Every video I made about Michigan's corporate takeover has every one of those elements. And it's like that in California. I did a story about Massachusetts. I did a story about Jamaica. There's also a situation in the UK where you have countries that literally have an export business for marijuana, but don't even let their people smoke weed. Have laws that are basically just as prohibitive as American laws. And let's not make any mistake about it. The only reason that the whole world follows the drug laws of the United Nations Treaty on Psychotropic Drugs or whatever, the convention, the only reason the whole world follows that shit closely to the letter of the law is because we do, and we tell them to. And our bankster, gangster friends tell them that they can't use banking services from them, or they can't get loans from central banks from America, or they can't get involved in bonus things coming from the petrodollar unless they subscribe to the fucking marijuana laws. And that's the main ones. All right. All the other laws are like, oh yeah, no one's really going to argue about heroin being on Schedule 1, right? Cocaine ain't even on Schedule 1, so we can have that. We can fight that battle much easier than this one because we already can do research. So, you know, that's how they do it. And those are the elements of a corporate takeover. And believe me, Canada, they have basically taken every one of these elements and blew them out of proportion, like way more than anybody else has ever tried. Before they even started, before they even got started. So, yeah, I knew I was going to jump in, but let's try to read the rest of this. In the past, the government could at least pretend it held the high moral ground when it came to enforcing laws against marijuana. Now, as legalization approaches, it's just a complicated cash grab. And I always talk about this, they always talk about the green rush. Well, the green rush is the government and the corrupt players that are trying to cash in on the green rush, trying to cash in on all the market projections being based on black market prices. So that's not very cool. They always use, oh, we're doing everything to benefit the consumer. And they always use the consumers as a means to get support for their draconian laws that they want to pass and their regulations that no one that already exists in the supply and distribution chain can afford to do the regulations. They don't make sense. The regulations are way over the top. So anyway, let's get back to the article. The exact same dope deal that put you in prison yesterday is now the new improved cannabis sale that's a bonanza for the government. Go ahead, try to imagine the smoke and mirrors involved in that transition. Your first clue should have been seeing the words Julian Fontano and medical marijuana in the same sentence. Mr. Law and Order Fantino used to equate marijuana and murder is but one person on the long list of former senior police people and political insiders who have found their way into the lucrative marijuana business. Now remember, he was like the police chief or some prosecutor, high level, bureaucratic, position in the criminal justice system in Toronto, who said that if you legalize marijuana, it's like blood money and all this shit. Funny how that works. Remember, rather than names, we'll give you a handy list Now Magazine compiled earlier this year. Read it and weep. And I'll go ahead and put a link to that in the description. But yeah, I did kind of go over this before when I was talking about Canada in like a different clip. I don't know if it was a weekly show. It wasn't just specifically about Canada, I don't think. But this is a list of all the people that were prohibitionists that are now trying to cash in, they are going to cash in. They are cashing in currently on what's going on in Canada. How about Bill Blair? A guy any sane person would assume couldn't run for dog catcher after the G20 fiasco of 2010. And yet, there he is, the point man on pot, the dude responsible for selling Prime Minister Trudeau's legalized pot plan across the country. And there he is. Boy, he sure is a looker, ain't he? Let's see. He's going to turn 420 into G20, jokes Jody Emery, the so-called princess of pot. She is a lone voice of sanity in the midst of legalized reefer madness. Emery and her husband Mark are cannabis rights activists who have been pro-legalization for years. Just months before the scheduled legalization of marijuana in this country, the Emerys were convicted of drug-related charges for having pot shops. Their real crime appears to have been making money in the very industry the government now hopes to claim as its own. And they are on probation and facing stiff fines. And let me just kind of go back a little bit here. So what Jody Emery has been espousing a lot on Twitter is that, and I've been saying it too, and we call them activists, and who they are is the people that grew weed before, the people that smoked weed before, the people that were activists before. Now I'm going to start a new series on this channel, and it's going to highlight the activists. And my first video is going to be about Rainbow Farms in Michigan. Because we need to start remembering the fucking activists. This is getting ridiculous. Not only are the activists getting bulldozered over by this legalization bullshit, but they're being completely fucking sold under the river. Forgotten about, whitewashed over, kicked off of YouTube for smoking a dab. And I'm quite frankly, I'm just getting sick of this shit. You know, this is just ridiculous. Am I an activist? Yeah. Yeah, I totally am. You know why? Because I was fighting to legalize marijuana since I was fucking born, pretty much. As soon as I figured out what the hell everything was and what was going on, I was in the mix. All right, I went to my first hash bash when I was like 13 years old. And this is just how it is, man. They are pushing anybody like me. They're pushing us right out, or they're arresting us, pushing us right into prison. And you ain't getting in the business. And that's what Jody Emery's been saying all throughout this legalization in Canada process. Starting with when they got their dispensaries raided back in 2016. So, yeah, it's ridiculous, man. Here's a tweet from Jody. Gotta admit, I'm pretty stunned by how many people making money working in the cannabis industry still believe cannabis should be considered a crime. And the funny thing about that is it's because not only are they basing their projections on black market pricing of cannabis, which, you know, people always say, oh, you small producers, you won't be able to afford to keep up with the game if the prices go down to what they could be, if, you know, or whatever. That's the threat. We're going to put you out of business that way. You know what? Go ahead and try it. Go ahead and fucking try it. Try to make the Walmart of weed make ounces like $10 or some shit. Just go ahead and try it. But my argument is it'll never get down to a point where it's like they're producing as high quality of stuff as small producers can produce because they care about their individual plants. They can never meet that quality. There's a break point. And the break point is if somebody like a small producer that was allowed to exist before because they just ignored you because you were so small, and that's the only thing that's been going on during Prohibition, all right, is small producers. Those big warehouse fucking grows, they always got busted, but small producers are what kept good weed in the fucking communities, local sales, local growers. And yeah, there's a break point, which would say that all I would have to do is increase my operation by a certain percentage and I'll be able to still survive. You guys threatening people that are small, like, oh, we're going to make ounces $10. Yeah, give me a fucking break. I don't buy it. I know what commodities pricing looks like. And a joint, this is never going to be something that you get for a penny. All right, dumbass. Don't fucking try to threaten people with that shit. It doesn't work. All right? Small producers can also make really good quality products. There's no way you're going to be able to get the price down to like $10 an ounce. I don't care how big of a warehouse you grow. You can't, you're going to be like, oh, it's like tomatoes, huh? Well, we'll make it like tomatoes, all right? We can produce billions of tomatoes in our 2-mile square foot factory or whatever. 2-mile square foot. See? You would never think of that joke if you didn't smoke weed. All right? So anyway, I'm sorry. I thought I was going to just read straight through this shit, but I can't, man. Because every time I see a tweet from Jody Emery, it just sets my brain on hyper mode. Like, why isn't more people thinking about this? Why isn't more people talking like this? Is this serious right now? They're really going to bulldozer right over all the people that fucking fought for this for so long and just hand it off to a bunch of rich people to fucking produce the fucking, you know, Folgers coffee of marijuana. Is that what we want? Is that what the people that were there for you growing this shit back in the 90s and the 80s and the 2000s, people that were fucking piggybacking duffel bags full of weed from California to fucking, Maine, do these people deserve to get fucking crushed out of the industry like a cigarette butt? Do these people deserve to just be getting basically thrown in jail because we caught you growing 20 plants? You know, what the fuck is going on? All right, back to the article. Not too surprisingly, Jody Emery is disgusted by what she sees coming with legalization. A pile-on of new federal, provincial, and even municipal laws, all aimed at controlling the government hold on the pot industry. Oh yeah, that's what the point I almost made, is not only are they basing their projections on this black market prices, they're doing everything they can to protect that high price, which means they're still keeping the risk high for anybody that wants to try to get involved with it, whether it be actual legitimate people that are going to go through the licensing process and all that shit, or whether it's people still participating in underground grows and stuff. I mean, the only way you're really going to do this right, man, is to bring those people into the fold. That's it. And not because you're going to make all these regulations and high fees and taxes and shit. That's not how you bring people into the fold. You legalize what they're already doing and tax that. The regulations are just common sense things, not over-the-top, ridiculous regulations based on, again, black market threats to the industry. And punishing the competition. Jody says, quote, "What we're seeing with legalization federally and provincially across Canada is a slow, crazy attempt by the government to try to take $8 billion of economic activity in free market transactions and force that into government stores. To do that will involve such minutiae as exactly where you can keep the 4 plants you're allowed to grow at home. Quote, in BC, you can go to jail if your plants are visible to anyone. The government itself is creating the criminal market," she continues. "If they just took marijuana out of the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act, we could have it regulated and treated like coffee and other consumables. Cannabis is safer than alcohol, tobacco, sugar, coffee, and a lot of other things the government sells us." Exactly. So why the stringent regulations? It doesn't make any fucking sense. It should not be regulated like alcohol and tobacco. Or even sugar and coffee, in my opinion. But still, whatever, man. Like, alcohol and tobacco are things that people use as substances to, enhance their physical attributes. Let's just be honest about it. Whether it be alcohol to just make your physical self, like, I don't know. Basically, these things are regulated because of the fact that they get you a buzz. Let's just say that. And nobody wants to see anybody have fun and make money, so that's where the regulations come from. They're not regulated because the shit's dangerous. If alcohol was regulated because it was dangerous, it would be illegal and they wouldn't let anybody make it and there would be a high penalty, just like we tried, right? Is that what I'm getting at? Same with tobacco. It's the most dangerous substance on earth. It kills 500,000 people a fucking year in America. This is tobacco, It's probably killing less people than that now because nobody even smokes that garbage anymore. Because as soon as people start learning and educating themselves, they start breaking free from the propaganda and the fucking marketing bullshit. And yeah, this corporate way is trying to guide people into things. And it's like they're telling you that marijuana is dangerous and we should regulate the shit out of it. Yet alcohol and tobacco, hardly any regulations at all. A lot of laws written about them. You can get busted for just about anything or nothing at all. Jody outlines a lot of the big business activity around legal pot, how the alcohol and pharmaceutical industries, for example, are moving into the marijuana business, both hoping to take advantage of pot's harm reduction statistics, even as they cash in big. She hopes to continue her political activism, but it's tough. Quote, "When so much of the news is about pot and multi-billion-dollar deals amongst the rich and connected, they get to have the frontline access, while the people who made legalization possible, like us, are in the back of the line in handcuffs, still facing prison time and massive fines. I describe it as a government trying to lock us out of the legalized industry and lock us up if we dare to try to participate. They're not legalizing the existing industry like they were supposed to. That's what we asked for every step of the way. Even in Michigan with the medical marijuana, that's what we asked for. And that's the way the corporate takeover, they don't give a shit about what you ask for. If you didn't write it down on paper when you passed it, then you didn't get it. Just remember that. And if you did write it down on paper, they're going to give it to you. Like if your limit is 2.5 ounces and you got 2.6 ounces, they're going to give it to you. The only thing you can do is hope that your regulations and your laws aren't like, okay, when they give it to you, it's just a fucking citation, I hope. But not in the case of Canada. Now they have way more laws, and you can go to jail for way longer for doing the same shit as you did yesterday. And we're about to talk about that. So the cost of legalization is going to be nuts, says Emery. Quote, the federal government is pledging $274 million for marijuana law enforcement, and provincially, they're introducing their own massive new set of criminal laws and punishments, she said. Her opinion of Ontario's Bill 174, quote, the government of Ontario wants to use cartel-style methods to shut down the competition. This is a gathering for legalization in 420 at Toronto. A simple question about legalized marijuana in the corrections system set off a flurry of governmental buck passing this week. More clearly than anything else, looking for official answers makes it clear how bum-fuzzled the government is over the legalization of marijuana. Another question no one's willing to answer: if an underage kid with a fake ID buys dope from an LCBO store, who takes the fall? We ask because one of the proposed changes that comes with illegal marijuana is a prison sentence of 14 years for people convicted of supplying dope to kids younger than 17. What else in the criminal code carries that kind of sentence, you ask? And let me just say this. To say that that's even a crime is bullshit. You don't have a law that says that fucking somebody has to be a certain age and then you do. What? So the penalty can't be like more intense than you didn't even have a law. These people are, they're fucking greedy, bloodthirsty criminals running the government. And this isn't just Canada. This is every government. The corruption is pretty freaking ridiculous. And I'm an American, so yeah, I see the biggest, most ugly corruption there is. So again, let's get back to this. What else in the criminal code will give you 14 years for doing something? Crimes involving child pornography, leaving Canada to commit terrorism, or assaulting a police officer. And I'm assuming that involves like doing great bodily harm or something. I don't know. They're introducing massive punishments, says pot activist Jody Emery. Governments are sending out every tool at their disposal to try to eliminate what they see as their competition. I call it the government gunmen. And another question, who is supposed to police online sales of marijuana, which, legal or not, are ever increasing? Can the government control this? Quote, they can't control any of it, says Emery. Even in countries where you can be executed, people are still growing and selling and using cannabis. You know the Einstein quote, insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. The government is saying if we just come out with bigger guns and more prison time and more police officers and more punishments, maybe then we'll be able to get rid of it. Legalization. This is the new criminalization, she adds. That's pretty brilliant shit. Thank you, Jody, for again speaking out for the activists, and thanks again, Mark, for sharing that on Twitter. I barely even looked at Twitter in the last few days. Thank you, the Emerys, the Prince and Princess of Pot, for saying what everybody needs to hear. Man, this legalization in Canada, it's a scam. It's a big scam, and I don't even know what to say, man. I really don't even have words for this, because you're talking about like places like British Columbia and other places where growing weed was just like the rite of passage almost for freaking 10-year-old kids. So come on, man. We can handle anything and everything that you throw at us. Believe it. Because we already lived through actual prohibition. I'm 47 years old. My whole life, I've lived under the fucking craziest prohibition ever. I started growing weed when, like, Ronald Reagan was president. So, yeah, this shit just keeps getting crazier, guys. Keeps getting nuttier. It's like the more legal weed becomes, the more dangerous it becomes just to be doing what I was doing when I was a fucking kid. So, alright, I'm out of here. Like I said, I'm going to continue to research and put together this clip about the Rainbow Farm, and I'm going to start doing the series about activists. And I already have some clips in my video list of clips that I've made about activists, and they just kind of brush up the surface. And I even did one about Mark and Jody when they got busted in 2016. And it was kind of like, in case you didn't know about Mark Emery, I gave you the brief history of, well, not so brief history of him, So we got to respect the people that got you to where we are right now, man. That's all I got to say about it. America's leading the way in this shit because we led the way in prohibition, and I guess it only makes sense for us to lead the way in ending that shit. But it doesn't end with just legalization. And I did a video about that several months ago. Legalization or prohibition. There's two very different things. Ending prohibition and legalizing weed is two completely different things. How do I know that? Well, one of them involves prison sentences for people that sell weed to somebody that's under 18 years old. The other one, it's not a prohibited substance. So people under 18, you're on your own. If someone makes a law about it, then you can deal with that then. That's all I got. Peace and love. And if you don't already do it, then please subscribe. We just passed 1,500 subscribers. I feel finally like maybe this channel might have a chance. And I hope that doesn't mean that tomorrow this shit's deleted. So follow me on Twitter just in case. I'll put the link in the description. Peace.